Hey everybody, what is going on? I am Maximus Rex, and this is Big Baby Reviews. Today's Wildcard Sunday, where we look at things a little bit different from our regularly scheduled videos during the week. Today we are looking at Marvel Fanfare, issue number 22, cover dated September 1985. I don't know that much about Marvel Fanfare. What I do know is every time I come upon an issue, it usually has some pretty interesting, a pretty interesting storyline and some interesting artwork or artists that you're not used to seeing on regular Marvel titles, at least during the 80s. What I've heard, and I mean, I might be wrong on this or not remembering this correctly, but I feel like a lot of Marvel Fanfare was basically, fill-in stories that were done by different artists that they would use, on a regular title when an artist was a bit late. And maybe at the end of a storyline, the next issue would be done by a fill-in artist, kind of a different story, slightly out of continuity. And then we'd come back next issue to the regular continuity of that character and the regular artist and such. And that's what I've heard anyways, that a lot of these issues eventually kind of started piling up, right? Because they weren't necessarily all being used. And someone figured, hey, we can put some of these in an extra title here. And I feel like Marvel Fanfare is that title because every issue is a different story, different artist, different character, right? And this one just stood out to me as very interesting. One, because mostly because of the artist Ken STEACY. I haven't found or seen much kind of mainstream Marvel artwork that he's done. I could be wrong on that, but I don't feel like he's done a lot. And this issue really stands out to me and is really fun for many reasons. So that's why we're looking at it today. Ken STEACY has a pretty distinct individual style, and Marvel really allowed him to push that in this issue. When we look at the credits, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. So great cover here. Dr. Octopus threatening Iron Man, who's a pretty compromised position. And just a small little detail, I like the fact that Dr. Octopus has a cigarette here in one of his octopus arms. Kind of weird because as it relates to yesterday's review of the Savage Dragon, we had the octopus in there. So to already have Dr. Octopus here, and you'll see with the storyline in a very similar situation. So that's just coincidence that it worked out that way. But yeah, Dr. Octopus is going to start off in this issue incarcerated as well, just like the octopus and the Savage Dragon. So kind of a weird coincidence, but hey, what are you going to do? Let's crack her open and have a look inside. So credits wise, what I was talking about is this here. Okay, so Stan Lee presents, Roger McKenzie does the script, Al Milgrom is the editor, Jim Shooter, editor-in-chief, and Ken STEACY, everything else. So he does pencils, inks, colors, and letters. And continuity-wise, I'm pretty sure Roger McKenzie is the one who wrote that famous storyline in Iron Man where he becomes an alcoholic, right? That was by Bob Layton, who was the artist. So I feel like this issue here was probably conceived, because you'll see a story point later on that leads me to think that was conceived in around the time of that storyline, and again was probably meant as a fill-in issue then, and it was never published. So in 1985 they took the opportunity to have that issue here in Marvel Fanfare. So that alcoholic storyline in Iron Man with Tony Stark, I believe, is pre-1985, like early 80s. So I think the timeline kind of works there. And this is just more of a preview of what's going to be happening in the issue, right? It doesn't really start off the storyline. And I do really appreciate all these reflections of Dr. Octopus on Iron Man. I think that works really well and really cool. And again, STEACY does a good job conveying that, and also does a great job with the colors. For an 80s comic, there's something definitely much different to the colors here than the typical Marvel comic. It doesn't look aesthetically like a typical Marvel comic, which I like. The art is a little more involved and very coherent, again, because it's the same artist all the way throughout. Pencils, inks, colors, and lettering. And it looks great, to be honest. The only thing is he's not the writer. So the storyline is basically, people are complaining that all this money is going into Rikers Island, which is kind of like the superpowered prison in the Marvel universe in New York State, or at least near New York City. And again, kind of weirdly mirrors what we saw in Savage Dragon yesterday. And this gentleman is kind of, giving shit to Tony Stark, because Tony Stark's company is the one responsible for security. And Stark is here to basically tell him, well, yeah, all this money's going in, but we do have some new security features that are going to help us keep these superpowered villains locked up here. So he's like, where are the iron bars and gates that, and boom, as he gets there, is kind of shocked. And that's when Tony Stark says, we replace them with an electrostatic force grid. It's virtually impregnable, which means, of course, you can't get in. So we're introduced again to some of the prisoners here. So you've got Electro, the gargoyle, the gray gargoyle, Sandman. Kind of funny that they're prisoners, but they're still allowed to wear their costumes. Kind of a weird detail there. But I really like the design here of Rikers Island and the prison cells and stuff. I think it looks really good. Ken Stacy doing a great job there. And then we're introduced to the person that Iron Man's going to have the most problems with in this issue, Dr. Octopus. And they've explained that Dr. Octopus, of course, controls his octopus apparatus with a mind link, but they put it far away where he cannot connect to it. But as we'll find out, they are wrong, and Dr. Octopus is still able to connect with his octopus arms, and that's what he's trying to do here telepathically. And I like this kind of design element that Stacy uses here, where it's almost like telepathic tentacles that are kind of coming off, emanating from Dr. Octopus to communicate with his octopus arms. And the fact that it comes out of the panel in the negative space here, I think is a really cool design element. So we see that people at Rikers Island are basically just trying to see if they can destroy his arms. And if you know anything about his arms, I think at this point they're made out of adamantium, so just like Wolverine's skeleton, so pretty much impossible to destroy. They're trying to blow it up here with sonics. Sonic weapon. They're trying to different acids and stuff to burn through it, and it's not working at all. And then here, just like we saw, kind of almost like Dr. Octopus's telepathic link emanating from the panel. Here it comes into the panel here, and I think that works really well in us understanding what's going on there with just a simple kind of design flourish. And boom, the arms come alive and of course start attacking his captors. We get an alarm, right? And Stark just runs off, and this guy's not happy. And basically Tony Stark at this point is still has a secret identity, and people don't know that he's Iron Man, so he has to kind of get away to be able to change into his Iron Man costume. So his flying car here, pretty sure that's a Ferrari or Lamborghini design or something. Anyways, definitely a car from the 80s. Looks kind of like Magnum PI's car, which makes sense. Maybe in that time, had you talked to people about stunt casting for an Iron Man movie, pretty sure Tom Selleck would have been at the top of the list in 1985. That Magnum PI mustache really harkening back to Tony Stark, I think. So still in that era where Iron Man has his Iron Man armor in just a briefcase, which is kind of funny and quaint. And boom, we're off to the races with Iron Man. Again, the art is great here. It feels like a more kind of art that you would see in a more of a prestige format. And again, the printing on Marvel Fanfare is really darn good. So we're not getting any of that, wide apart dot pattern. There's almost, you really have to look close to see it. And just the printing quality on this comic is just amazing. So Iron Man shows up at Rikers Island and has to face off against Dr. Octopus's arms here. This is pretty cool. I forget the name of that technique, but when you draw the same character doing, it's almost like 4 panels in one, right? Four beats of action, almost like animation, right? The movement broken down. Really well done here. And again, I really want to note the colors, right? For 1985 comic, the colors on this are just amazing. They're very bright and saturated. Iron Man, which is cool. Red and yellows, right? They're really stand out, and it is superhero comics, so you want those saturated colors, I think. But the more subtle stuff he does with the backgrounds and the gradients, really cool. These, darker monochrome kind of shots here with the blue purple in the foreground. The color choice is just really, really exquisite. So a lot of time spent fighting the arms and getting people out of harm's way here. And then eventually, the arms make their way back to Dr. Octopus, back to their master. And these guys are obviously telling him, hey, how about you let us out, right? I need no one, Sandman, least of all you. Still, you could prove useful. So he's weighing his options, as they say here. Iron Man shows up, once again chastised by this fellow, right? And he says, and I hold your employer responsible. So this is a time in continuity where, again, Iron Man is seen as Tony Stark's employee. People don't know that he's actually Tony Stark. So this definitely feels pre-1985 continuity, because I think by 1985, it had been revealed that Tony Stark was Iron Man. Don't quote me on that. I'm not 100% sure on it. There's probably some Iron Man experts out there who know more than I do, but I feel like that's a possibility. So yeah, so what we can see here is basically, the villains that Octopus released, giving Iron Man a hard time so that hopefully, Octopus can just let them do the job of getting rid of him. But Iron Man, pretty adept at taking down these villains real quick. And again, the color choice here, right? Like a dark kind of moment here. You know, the lights have probably gone out of Riker's Island, right? And then boom, he just uses, you know, those bright colors for the moment of impact here. I think that works really well. Really like it. I think the colors are the real heroes in this comic, but the artwork overall is pretty stellar. Pretty interesting here. All the textures with Sandman, the water rushing in, you know, the more kind of glistening look on Iron Man. The walls here kind of looks like a weird, you know, almost like they're in a pool setting, I would say. I don't think they are, but that's what it looks like to me. And as he gets rid of all the other guys, well, eventually he's going to confront Dr. Octopus. And again, you get the shot here, almost similar here to, if you flip it around, that classic Kingpin sequence that Frank Miller did where, you know, he pulls out a cigarette, he lights it up, and then the next panel, he's got lots of shadows and stuff. And it's they say that's the part where that sequence where Miller turned the John Romita Sr., Kingpin into a Frank Miller Kingpin. This kind of reminds me of that a little bit here with Dr. Octopus lighting a cigarette and that flash of light on his face there, and then the dark shadows. Nice little sequence there. And I mean, sometimes like all of a sudden he's green, right? And you'd think that wouldn't work, right? But I guess the lighting affects him or something. I think it looks great. And this was kind of surprising to me, just Dr. Octopus ripping off the whole front part of Tony Stark's armor, which is pretty surprising. Again, his arms are very strong. They're made of adamantium, so I guess they could do that, but it's just not something I've seen happen to Iron Man very often. And I guess by this point, he doesn't have the, well, from the movie, the arc reactor, stuck directly inside his chest, so he's somehow separated from that now. He doesn't need it to live. I'm not exactly sure when that happened in continuity. I never followed Iron Man comics that closely. But yeah, that just basically takes down Iron Man, and for once the hero basically lost this one, and Dr. Octopus is able to escape, right? And then we get the epilogue where Tony Stark is sitting in his office kind of brooding over the situation, and of course we see him just taking a drink here. And like I said, definitely reference to that whole storyline, or a build up to that storyline where it's revealed that, yeah, Iron Man, Tony Stark, is actually an alcoholic. So maybe a few issues in and kind of just trying to give you a bit of foreshadowing for those later issues when they have a reveal. So that's what makes me kind of think that this was meant to be a fill-in issue, maybe a few issues before the reveal that he's an alcoholic, right? So kind of just giving you a little bit of it here, if you imagine it being in regular continuity, right? Building up to the fact that he clearly has a huge problem. I mean, here we get a sense that he does, but then it's going to become a full-blown problem in the regular series, and kind of a pivotal story point in the whole Iron Man continuity. And I think this shot looks really good here, just that very dark silhouette shot with just a little bit of hatching here and there and a few light reflections. Just stellar work on all the artwork in here, pencils, inking, and colors by Ken Stacy, and just kind of a special issue that I don't hear talked about that much, and you know, that really doesn't get its due, I guess. So definitely seek it out if you can find it. It's pretty cheap. I'm pretty sure you probably find it in a dollar bin. And then, you know, surprisingly for Marvel at this period, some high production value where instead of throwing some ads in there, I think there might have been an ad. Yeah, I don't think there are any ads in this comic, which is nice. This might have been one of those direct market only comics. I don't know for sure. I don't know that much about Marvel Fanfare, but I do like the production values. And again, the fact that they don't have advertisements clogging up the regular comic and the regular storyline throughout this book. So we get a Ken Stacy pinup of a bunch of characters. We've got Conan here, not Conan O'Brien, Conan the Barbarian. We've got Captain America. Got the Hulk, maybe not quite as monstrous as he should be, I feel. Just looks like a fairly muscular guy with green skin. So not sure I like his interpretation of the Hulk. We got an interpretation of Thor here in the Rainbow Bridge. I think looks really cool. Again, all throughout these pieces, though, the colors are amazing. I'm not quite sure. I think he does a lot of airbrush. You know, he is the one who airbrushed over Todd McFarlane's pencils and inks on the Spawn #1 cover, Spawn 1 and 2. I think those guys were friends and acquaintances at some point. So, you know, I guess Todd wants something a little bit different for those first couple of issues of Spawn, and Ken Stacy's the one who did it. And on the Spawn issues, I know that is airbrush, so I feel like this is probably airbrush as well. Possibly done, you know, where he inks, you know, and then prints it up on acetate. Just the black lines like you do on a layer in, you know, Photoshop or digitally today with Procreate or something like that. And then behind that, on another acetate, you do your airbrushing, or just on a white sheet, right? If you're going to cover up all the white, you do all your colors on there. Kind of a more traditional, old school way of doing colors. And I feel like that's what Ken Stacy is doing here. Got a shot of Nick Fury and Spider-Man, look really cool, right? Some interesting acrobatics pre-McFarlane of Spider-Man doing something maybe a little bit different that we haven't seen him do before. Love the architecture back here, right? These two heads look great. Very cool. And then boom, we got the Fantastic Four. So I guess this is the period when Franklin Richards was around, the Fantastic Four, Mr. Fantastic and the Invisible Woman's kid. Looking at a John Byrne cover here that they statted in there. That's fun. And yeah, that's about all I got to say about that one. Looks pretty cool. Still have a letter page though back then. But again, I appreciate the fact that none of that shows up throughout the story in the comic and throughout those pinups. Oh, and completely forgot. We'll just give you a last look. This is a wraparound cover. So got the other villains that are involved in the story here behind Dr. Octopus. Good idea, good composition to split it this way, right? And that's why, you know, wraparound covers sometimes when you don't think of that, this part can look a little weird because you feel like you're missing stuff, but this works as a single image. And obviously once you open it up, definitely works as a wraparound double page splash. Good stuff. There you go, guys. That is my review of Marvel Fanfare issue number 22. If you have any comments and concerns, let me know in the comments below. If you're still watching and you are subscribed, thank you so much for sticking around. I really do appreciate it. If you're watching but you're not subscribed, please do so below. It only takes a quick second, and it really helps the channel out, helps us grow and get out there to other people who are into comic books, just like we are. We're on the road to 500 subscribers. That's where YouTube really recognizes us as an official channel and helps us out a little bit to get out there to more people and hopefully find more subscribers and people who are into my channel and into reviews about comic books. So thank you so much, guys, for being there, and have an awesome day. King Comics presents Big Baby Volume 1, issues 1 to 13, 204 pages of story and art. King Comics also presents Star Crasher one-shot, 32 pages, cosmic sci-fi surrealist adventure. You can find these fine comics at KingComics.CA, at MaximusRex13 on Instagram, or on Facebook, MaxRex or Big Baby.
Like! Subscribe!